All right, everybody. Welcome to day 75. 75 days. We are getting up there. What a wonderful thing. Won't be too long. We'll be celebrating 100. And before you know it, we'll be starting all over again. So day 75, some really cool things that are in here this time, which is kind of neat to talk about because I just remember reading Deuteronomy for the first time, second time, whatever, and thinking, really, this is not important stuff. But it's cool to see things that are in here. Again, this is Moses reiterating some things to the new Israelites that have made it and they're getting ready to go into the promised land. He's talking about the commandments and he's talking about all the festivals and all the things that need to be done. So in our list that we've made, there's some sevens, some things about tithing. But I want to talk about something that kind of came up in here that I just hadn't noticed really before. Talking about false prophets. So we're going to start with that. False prophets, chapter 13, verses 1 through 3. So we got a couple other references we're going to be looking at in here. Suppose there are prophets among you, or those who dream dreams about the future, and they promise you signs or miracles, and the predicted signs or miracles actually occur. It doesn't actually occur. If they then say, "Come, let us worship other gods you have not known before," do not listen to them. The Lord your God is testing you to see if you truly love him with all your heart and soul. Wow, this is big. Number one, it's admitting there's going to be false prophets that predict things and say things are going to happen, and they're going to happen. And God is saying, and we should recognize this, God is testing these people. And you should accept the fact that, well, why can't God test us? Of course, he can test us. All right. So let's kind of go from there. And in Jesus' time, Matthew 24, verse 24, this is actually pretty cool. Then if anyone tells you, "Look, here is the Messiah," or "There he is," don't believe it. And then verse 24 says, "For false messiahs and false prophets will rise up and perform great signs and wonders so as to deceive, if possible, even God's chosen ones." See, I've warned you about this ahead of time. You warned us back in Deuteronomy, dude, and you're warning us again back in Matthew 24 when you were here the first time. Oh, wait a second. Let's go back to Revelation. Revelation chapter 13, verse 11 through 15. Okay? Then I saw another beast come up out of the earth. He had two horns like those of a lamb, but he spoke with the voice of a dragon. So you got the dragon, the first beast, and the second beast. So some crazy stuff here. So who is the second beast? He exercised all the authority of the first beast, and he required all the earth and his people to worship the first beast, whose fatal wound had been healed. He did astounding miracles. So here we go. So this is the false prophet in the end times with the Antichrist. So the false prophet did astounding miracles, even making fire flash down to the earth from the sky while everyone was watching. And with all the miracles he was allowed, that's the key here. He was allowed to perform, with all the miracles he was allowed to perform on behalf of the first beast, he deceived all the people who belonged to this world. He ordered the people to make a great statue of the first beast who was fatally wounded and then came back to life. He was then permitted to give life to the statue so that it could speak. So again, he's permitted to do these things. Then the statue of the beast commanded that anyone refusing to worship it must die. So you need to get this. God uses these things to test us. Think about Job when we were reading Job. God allowed Satan to test Job. Okay, we already talked about this. Daniel wasn't saved from the lion's den. Daniel had to go through it. And God brought him through it. Meshach, Abednego, Shadrach, they all got thrown into the furnace. They had to go through it. And God brought them through that. Okay? So these things are going to be used to test us. Maybe not each of us individually, maybe not in our lifetime, but these things are there. What an awesome point for us to realize that this is all throughout the whole Bible. So some great things when we actually get into the prophets, some wonderful things to be reading about. Now let's go in and talk about tithes. Chapter 14, verse 22 through 23. We have two areas to, three areas. No, 2 areas to go through. 14, verses 22 and 23, just to point these out. You must set aside a tithe of your crops, 1/10 of all the crops you harvest each year. So my point in bringing this up is there's always this argument about why does it have to be 1/10? Why does it have to be this? So I'm going to address both sides here. Okay? Right now, we have mentioned many times about tithing, and it does say many times 1/10. Okay? I'm addressing that side. I'm going to address the other side in just a second. The other side saying, well, why does it have to be any side? Why can't I decide according to what I have? Okay, well, we're going to address that. Okay, so, which is in chapter 16, verse... let's actually go one step in between here. Give to the poor. Chapter 15, verse 10. It says, give generously to the poor, not grudgingly, for the Lord your God will bless you in everything you do. Don't judge the person. If someone's in need, give. End of story. It doesn't say 10%. If this is not tithing, this part really isn't tithing. This is just giving above and beyond. And you will be blessed for it. That's the other thing. God isn't saying you should give, and I'm not going to care if you give how much you give or whatever. Just give, whatever. No, it's I'm going to bless you because you did this. Well, come on. This is like an investment that the return is just enormous. What a wonderful thing. Everyone should give. Chapter 16. 10%, right? Chapter 16, verse 17. Well, it says, all must give 10%. No, it doesn't say that. It says, all must give as they are able, according to the blessings given to them by the Lord your God. According to your blessings. So again, you could say, well, I should give 10% of the blessings I give. I'm not advocating either one. I give 10%, but have there been times I haven't? Yeah. You got to give according to what you've been given. And whatever's on your heart at that time. But in general, it's talking about 10%. That should be your goal, maybe. I don't know. You decide. So now I want to talk about the sevens. Oh my gosh, a whole bunch of sevens again. Okay, so of course Moses is reiterating all these things to the new Israelites. And some of it's redundant, but I just want to talk about a few of them to make sure we got it. Because sometimes you're making your list, you forget to write things down. 15:1. I'm just going to go through them real fast. 15:1 says, at the end of every 7th year, you must cancel the debts of everyone who owes you money. Wow, that's pretty awesome. Okay, that's a cool thing. And now, obviously, it talks about, don't forget to give even in the 6th year, even though in the next year you got to give up the debt. But, you got to use your smarts about those sorts of things. Slaves are set free. This is mentioned before. 15:12. It says, if a fellow Hebrew, this is important, if a fellow Hebrew sells himself or herself to be your servant, and serves you for 6 years, in the 7th year you must set that servant free. And then it goes on and talks about that. 7 weeks of the festival harvest. 16:9. Count off 7 weeks from when you first begin to cut the grain at the time of harvest. Then celebrate the festival of harvest to honor the Lord your God. Bring him a voluntary offering in proportion to the blessings you have received from him. Okay, again, tithing there a little bit, but that has to deal with the festival of shelters, harvest. Now the next one's festival of shelters, 16:13. You must observe the festival of shelters for 7 days at the end of the harvest season, after the grain has been threshed and the grapes have been pressed. Okay, so there's a whole list of sevens and some wonderful things about false prophets, not just mentioned in the end times. Okay, a lot of times, false prophets, we're in the end times. Well, obviously there will be false prophets throughout time, actually making things happen. Mediums, psychics, whatever. You're supposed to avoid that stuff. And we've mentioned that before. That is day 75. What an awesome day. See you tomorrow.